USA versus China versus Russia. Who's gonna win the space race? The gigantic geopolitical superpowers of mankind are once again battling for dominance amongst the stars in the sky above us. Unlike in the 1960s, there are three of them this time. It is indeed a difficult situation. Join us today as we dress our spacesuits and explore the new space competition that is now taking place between the United States, China, and Russia. The so-called old school or classic space race began in the 1950s, flourished in the 1960s, and then faded by the mid-1970s. It was an unofficial race, and no one waved a distinctive green flag to start things off. But the two most powerful economic and technical forces of the day, the United States of America and the Soviet Union, battled tooth and nail to be the first to make significant progress into space. Their accomplishments are legendary, not the least of which are amazing inputs, such as entering the first year. That was the first American footprint on the moon, and it came from the Soviet Union. These historic events not only represented incredible technological and logistical achievements, but also power, domination, and reputation. It's critical to understand that they were created with the express purpose of demonstrating the efficacy of each country's economic strength and their separate political systems. On the Soviet side, communism, and on the state side, liberal democratic capitalism. Both sides were driven to achieve literal brilliance by a desire to show not just technological, but also ideological supremacy over their opponents. Let's fast forward to the present day. In 2021, who will be competing in the space race? And is it really a competition? The most noticeable distinction between the classic space race and today's space competition is China's entry into the game. The People's Republic is undoubtedly a powerhouse on Earth. Yet, its first astronaut was only sent into space in 2003. Figures on investment are difficult to come by due to the Chinese government's opacity. But even the most liberal in knowledge estimate that China spends no more than a fraction of what the US invests in space. Even so, it's doing some fascinating things up there. Consider Beidou, China's satellite navigation system, and a direct competitor to America's formerly dominating GPS system. The array was completed last summer when the 55th and last Beidou satellite was launched into orbit. This freedom from the American system is crucial because it allows the People's Republic to be self-sufficient in everything from fast food delivery to navigation to missile launches. Other countries, such as Brunei and Pakistan, are increasingly opting for Beidou over GPS as part of China's imperialistic Belt and Road Plan. This is a striking example of contemporary imperialism in action. According to specialists, it is 20 centimeters more precise than GPS, which is employed for both military and civilian purposes. All of this may seem ordinary and arcane, but it isn't. But in any case, China is doing more than its fair share of high-profile space missions. It launched a rover on the moon's dark side in 2019, a feat NASA hailed as a first for mankind and an impressive accomplishment. The Chang'e 5 mission from China just returned to Earth carrying rock samples, which hasn't been done since the 1970s. China is also building its own orbiting space station, known as Tiangong 3 or Heavenly Palace. The Chinese government was barred from participating in the ISS by the US Congress 10 years ago. So, during the next 2 years, China will construct its own space station, which will almost definitely outlive the International Space Station, which is expected to be decommissioned in the next decade at most. China's aspirations extend outside the solar system as well. NASA's unwavering commitment after successfully landing on the surface of Mars a few months ago. The rover made headlines all around the globe. What was less well reported was that a Chinese mission, Tianwen-1, or Quest for Heavenly Truth, also arrived on Mars and is now in a so-called parking orbit around the planet. China has been busy improving its Earth-bound monitoring stations in the far western Xinjiang area and the northeastern Heilongjiang province to assist this rover expedition. Future space missions will benefit from critical infrastructure. Furthermore, China is preparing a Voyager-style probe mission to be sent into the solar system's furthest reaches. The project, codenamed IHP, or Interstellar Heliosphere Probe, will send to space probes to study the enormous electrically charged gas bubble that surrounds our solar system and fluctuates as we move through space. One of the IHP probes is scheduled to enter the heliosphere in 2049, using not one but two flight routes between Earth and Jupiter to gain speed. In the year 2038, its companion probe will swing past chilly, faraway Neptune. And if you believe the United States has a monopoly on private sector falcons like Elon Musk, think again. Lei Jun, a Chinese tech billionaire, is a big supporter of Galaxy Space, one of the country's many autonomous space companies. Galaxy Space already operates China's first low-Earth orbit 5G satellite system and is presently constructing its own gigafactory in Jiangsu province to manufacture and launch hundreds of satellites to compete with Elon Musk's Starlink broadband plan. iSpace, a private Chinese company that has received billions in startup funding and is aiming to build a reusable spaceplane to serve the fledgling orbital tourist industry, is another private Chinese enterprise in the fight. Despite all of this frantic effort, many Chinese experts believe the People's Republic is not in the mood to race. It is claimed that China is just playing catch-up for the time being, since it is philosophically predisposed to go about things cautiously and deliberately. Space science has military relevance, but only if it can be used to provide a credible deterrence, according to experts. Certainly, these large projects have some propaganda value, and Chinese visitors come to beautiful Hainan Island to witness the country's pride and joy, the Long March 5B spacecraft launch. However, although the country's rover technology is outstanding, it is decades behind that of the US. So, how are things going for Americans? Skeptics say that after the end of the shuttle program in 2011, the United States has failed to capture the world's imagination with anything genuinely innovative in the area of space travel. Certainly, until recently, NASA relied on Russian spacecraft to transport personnel and supplies to the International Space Station. Elon Musk's SpaceX and its ambitious Starship development activities are responsible for the majority of the truly interesting space things coming out of the United States, according to the argument. However, it isn't the entire tale. Take, for example, NASA's Artemis mission, which aims to send the first woman to the moon by 2024. Not only that, but Artemis wants to make the moon a stepping stone to Mars by preparing it for future resource exploitation. NASA is constructing its first deep space rockets on Saturn V, the so-called Space Launch System, and is contemplating the not insignificant job of building a space station orbiting the moon, known as the Gateway Project, on its approach to completing the Artemis project. In fact, SpaceX already has a contract to fly supply flights to and from Gateway. Last year, NASA presented the so-called Artemis Accords, a proposed international pact aimed at dividing up moon land and resources in a fair and open manner. China, for one, has refused to sign on, with some Chinese media claiming that the accords are being pushed by a political goal of moon colonization. With a non-committal administration and its own economic difficulties to solve, Russia is barely in the race these days. Even if there isn't a competition, the technologies being created to propel the next wave of exploration should excite everyone. What are your thoughts? Is it necessary for significant development to be propelled by competition? Which future mission has grabbed your interest the most? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Before leaving, don't forget to subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications of our future content. With that being said, see you in the next one.